Welcome to Real Talk TV. My name is Darryl Buchannan. I'd like to thank everybody for watching the show, supporting the show, and can you continue to like the show? Can you please share it? And subscribe to the channel. I really need you guys to start subscribing to the channel. I'd appreciate that a lot. Before I begin, I just want to give a few shout outs. I'd like to give a shout out to Leaving Street Ministries, as always. Wanda and Jesus, you guys are doing big things out there. I appreciate you guys' support. And it's like we support each other, and that's a big thing. I also want to give a shout out to Joseph Tu Bennett out there with Yard Time Entertainment. He also has a men's mental health group that I'm a part of. I really like it, and I'm giving a shout out to you too. I'd like to thank everyone for we just did a clothing drive, and in the beginning I was like, is it going to work out? Because we did it a little bit after Christmas, but the support has been crazy. We have a lot of coats, more coats tonight. Thought we would get, so we'll be able to help a lot of people and give coats out and keep a lot of families and people in our community warm. I'd like to give a shout out to Recovery Connection. For people that don't know what the Recovery Connection is, it's a peer-run center in the community on 31 Main Street. It's a community center. I know that it's been labeled a / drug recovery center, but at the end of the day, it is a community center. People can come in. We invite the public to come down. If you know anyone that's struggling, if you know anyone that needs help, come down and we'll assist them, give them services, or just be a friend for the day. I'd like to say thanks to Ryan, Alex, and Mike. Without them, this show couldn't be done. They are the force here at WMCT-TV. They're doing a great job, and I just appreciate the work that they do. Like I said, without them, this wouldn't be done. Today I have a good show. A longtime friend. When we reached out to talk about doing the show, a lot of memories came flooding back of us being in places locked down and just struggling as kids and young men with this disease. At the time, I didn't know it was a disease. But I'll let him tell his story. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my friend, George Harris, a person in long-term recovery and who also works in the field. Hey, George, how you doing, bro?
Hi, Darryl.
Hey, can you tell my audience a little bit about yourself?
Well, I grew up in Burlington. My family all came from Charlestown, and my mother and father moved out of the city to suburbs to try to give me and my brother a nice life. And for me, just being a young kid, getting into sports, playing sports and all that was fun. But at 9 years old, alcohol and drugs came in my life. And my whole life just turned from being that nice kid to started being real mischief and started running into a lot of problems in life at that age. My family was involved in a lot of stuff. My mother's brothers were all criminals from Charlestown, gangsters, and the story of my life was when I was a kid, I'd be going to Walpole State Prison, sitting out in the parking lot. My mother would go in and visit her brother on death row in 1965, 66, in those years. And I really didn't know what was really going on as a kid. It came to me later in life that my mother's brothers were all involved in the Irish gang wars of the 60s in Charlestown with Winter Hill guys, which was all over alcohol and women that started the gang wars, where over 70 Irish guys got killed. But my life changed from a 9-year-old kid that was playing sports, doing things that my father and my mother were proud of. Going to school, being a good kid, playing hockey, playing Little League baseball, playing Pop Warner football. And the minute I picked up alcohol, it was the summer from leaving elementary school, going into 5th grade of junior high school. My whole life shifted. I just, I quit playing sports, and my dad couldn't understand, like, well, what do you mean you love playing sports? And I told him, Dad, I'm not interested. And what happened to me, my brother was 5 years older than me. And back then it was 18 years old to buy liquor. And they would be coming over to my house. We had a pool, and we had a pool table in the basement with a bar. And there was always, kids around that would be drinking, and other drugs were coming around, marijuana. Back then there was pills and Quaaludes and THC and all that stuff. So I was just a kid that wanted to get in with what they were doing, and I hung around with a set of friends in my neighborhood that were a little older than me too. And I just fell into that situation of being you know, misinformed by the misinformed youth.
Yeah.
And that's what happens, you know. Those kids that my brother would be hanging around, they were all 5 or 6 years old, and they could get liquor. And I just started drinking, and then what happened to me is I started like stealing out of my dad's wallet. I started stealing out of my mother's pocketbook for money for booze and weed back then, marijuana. I wanted to get, you know, buy a bag of weed. But for me, you know, it started real early, like getting in trouble in school. My schoolwork struggled, and next thing you know, I was getting involved with the law at very young age, you know, 12 years old, 11, 12 years old. I was getting in trouble with the law, and you know, they were coming to the junior high school and pulling me out of class, arresting me a few times for nonsense stuff. But they were arresting me for stuff, and you know, I just started having problems in the court, Woburn Court, Lowell Court. I was in and out of Lowell Court. I had charges in Boston courts. You know, but for me, I was fully immersed in drug addiction and alcoholism by I was 12-year-old kid. I was smoking angel dust at 12 years old.
Wow.
And I was, you know, started doing cocaine at 14 and just taking pills. And, you know, for me, I wasn't really interested in school anymore. My mind was more of going to school, finding booze if I could get it to go to school. And we just talked about that. It's about fear and doubts and insecurity. You know, I remember as a young kid, probably, you know, 6th grade, I'd be bringing, if I could get them, I'd bring them to school, nips or a little pint of booze, and I would take it and put it in my chocolate milk, and I'd go into the laboratory, the bathrooms, and I'd, you know, and I'd put it in, and I'd drink it up, and I'd walk around the cafeteria like, oh, all right, now I feel good. I get that warm glow. And that started right in junior high school for me. But I was really getting in so much trouble around my neighborhood and in the town. Woburn, and I was having a lot of problems just as a kid. You know, I became criminal. I started stealing, I started cheating, I started lying, I started breaking into homes, I started robbing, breaking into cars, I started selling drugs. And my dad was there. He kept me he kept me, you know, get me lawyers for the court so I didn't have to go to juvenile detention. But by the time I was 17 in 1980, you know, I had like 17 charges. They just put me up to House of Correction for 2.5 years. I was a kid in 1980. 17, I went up there for 2.5 years. And what happened up there is that place was on fire. It was wild.
Yeah, it was. I was there with you.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was a ton of kids from different cities, and there was a lot of ego and a lot of pride and a lot of little packs of wolves up there.
Packs of wolves, yeah.
That, you know, if you didn't fight, you were going to get you were going to get, you know, you were going to get smashed up. So, you know.
Let me back straight before you go ahead. Let me back straight. Just your family members, your uncles. How did that influence you? You know what I mean? I mean, we talked a little bit before. I would like you to just get a little bit deeper, if you can. How did how did it influence you? Because that's some big stuff to look up to. I mean, we look up to people that we see on TV, or not, you know, or just people that are doing. But looking up to gangsters, how did that influence you?
So I was affected by that. The secret was that my mother lost 4 brothers, and she told me that all of them died in World War II. And my other uncle, who was in prison he was on death row for 5 years, that got commuted in 1970 to natural life. He was in the Navy doing a life career. So it was a secret.
She told you.
It was a secret. So I remember going to Walpole, visiting. I couldn't go in there. My mother would go in to see him, but I remember taking rides up there with my dad, dropping off like holiday packages to him and stuff. It came to me probably around 12 or 13, 14. Me and my brother started finding Boston Globe and Time Magazine. It was in, you know, it's all, you could Google it, you can Wikipedia it. You know, they wanted to make, Fleck and Damon wanted to make a movie of the Irish Gang Wars. My uncle wouldn't talk about it. But I was duly affected by that as a teenager, as I grew up into getting into trouble and becoming a criminal. I looked up at that with respect. You know, that was a big thing to me. And what happened to me, you know, I became violent myself.
I remember that. We're going to talk about that.
I became very violent myself, and that was affected. And I'm not going to blame, you know, I don't blame anything on my family. My alcoholism and my drug addiction has nothing to do with my family, but I was duly affected by stuff that has happened by looking up to that stuff. With the respect thing, you know, well, your uncles are gangsters, your uncles are killers.
Especially back when we were growing up, and
Right.
we were getting, that was a big thing, like you said, in
Right.
Boston. Especially in the penitentiary also, being in jail.
Yeah. So I mean, and what happened was I found out that two of my uncles were murdered on the streets of Boston, Bernie and Eddie, Punchy McLaughlin, and my uncle George was doing a natural life bid. It got commuted in 1970 to natural life.
And that's the one that did the 55 years?
He did the 55 years straight. He was my godfather, and my mother named me George Bernard after her two brothers. You know.
How did that affect you? How did you feel
Well,
about
that affected me. For a lot of years, I resented the name because I was named after killers.
Yeah.
But like I spoke to you about it, by doing, by doing work in the program, doing step work, doing a 4-step, I looked at that and I said, you know what, my mother had every right to name me that because she loved her brothers unconditional. My mother was a loyal woman, and she had, 11 siblings, 10 siblings in herself, 11 kids in a big Irish family in Charlestown. And she loved her brothers unconditionally, and she had every right to name me that. I resented the name for years.
Yeah, it came to
I used to give my mother a hard time, like, why would you name me after them two murderous bastards?
Yeah.
Excuse my language.
So
Yeah.
It'll get cut out.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something, right? When I met you, and I've known you for over 40 years.
40
like you
years,
said,
yeah.
we were in jail together. We talked about it a little bit. I'd go in the gym. Well, even before we went in the gym, we'd hear this pow, 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 and it was either one or two people hitting the bag. You or Frankie, and a lot of people feared you, right? A lot of people were afraid because we saw how you did the bag, right? We saw what you did to the punching bag. But we talked about that, and like I told you, a lot of stuff in my life I found out was fear-based. I thought I was courageous, and it had nothing to do with courage. I was afraid. I was afraid of not being accepted. I was afraid if I didn't do that, or if I was just afraid. And and also like you said, the insecurity piece. I didn't feel comfortable. My childhood was robbed. I was molested. So all that stuff, when I got in that area, it was just all fear. How about you? You were seen as, as a tough guy. You know what I mean? To be honest with you, and a guy that, and today is still a guy that people respect, but I think it's on a different level. But I think at that time it was, I think people were like, comics were afraid of you. What was that about, man?
For me, I mean, my dad had me in judo very young. Me and my brother, we both did judo for years, and I did it for a couple of years while I was that 9-year-old kid that got high, but I quit it. But I was always training in kickboxing and boxing stuff, and I got really good with my hands and feet. So, but when I would be in the institutions, I would use that as, basically, I look at it as it was fear in me that I would want other people to see what I was about. That they would, it would keep people at a distance. When you're throwing roundhouse kicks and you're breaking heavy bags up there, people are like, whoa, I don't know about that. Those hands look pretty good, and them feet are pretty quick.
Yeah.
So it is fear. This disease runs on fear.
Yeah.
Excuse me. This disease is really, and we have to look at it. It is a disease, and it centers in our minds. So we're always going to do whatever it's going to take to keep this disease comfortable.
Keep it fed,
To keep us comfortable.
Keep it fed.
So when we're up in jails and prisons, it's like we just talked about, there's a pack of wolves up there. There's 25 kids from Cambridge and, 15 from Lowell. I'm just a kid from Burlington. I'm not really a Charlestown guy. I'm from Burlington. I moved out of Charlestown, my family. I grew up in Burlington. So I kind of used it I used it as a fear. It's probably inside me fear, but I wanted other people to see that and say, whoa, that's a fear, that's a fear look like. I don't know if I want to handle that guy. He looked pretty good, his hands and feet, So it is funny how you say that because, how many fights we've had, but it's all fear.
It is all fear.
It's all fear and
And everything, even in, active addiction, I was afraid. I was afraid that the dealer wasn't coming when he said he was going to come. You know what I mean? Just afraid I wouldn't have enough money for the next one. It's just constantly in fear. When I seen you this, one thing I do say, you can see peace on you. You really can. When I first walked in and I seen you, it was glow. It was somebody that settled in. You know what I mean? Like you said, you've done a lot of work on you. Well, I wanted to get back to that, but I wanted to. So after Barica, you end up going.
So I did 2 years up in Barica. When I come out of that sentence, I was really violent, really angry. More angry than I was when I went in there as a kid.
You was more angry when you left than you.
Yeah, when I left the jail because I was fighting up there all the time.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I was getting in so many fights. I was constantly locked up in SAG. I was in the hole.
Yeah, you
and,
were. Yeah.
You know, constantly just fighting. I was battling just, I don't know what I was fighting, but I was just fighting. And when I come out of that sentence, 2 years, I actually came home and my family was, you know, involved in moving big weights of coke and bales of marijuana. And I started doing things with my dad and my brother, you know, moving big weight of coke. And you know, I came home and the house was full of drugs. It was full of keys of coke, and my basement had like 50 burlap sacks of marijuana, all wrapped up in burlap sacks, 50 pounds and 48.2 and all these big burlap sacks of these bales of marijuana.
Yeah.
I was just a kid, you know. And for me, up in Barica, I started shooting cocaine up there. My dad was a great guy, but he was kind of wanted to be like a buddy of mine. He was lugging me drugs. He would lug me drugs in. When I would go to court, he'd put a package in a sub with you know, coke and Valiums and weed. You know, and I'd do my thing and take it back to the institution. But then he started coming up and lugging me to over at the dorm and stuff. So you know, one day I just decided, you know what, I want to try whacking that and shoot some cocaine. And I started shooting cocaine up in the dorm.
Yeah.
I was probably an 18-year-old kid. I started shooting coke up there and instantly fell in love with it.
Yeah.
So when I came out of that sentence, I come home, my house was full of coke and bales of marijuana. Didn't really work good for me because now I liked that rush of coke back then, you know, and I was like, wow, it was basically really scary when I look at it now, but back then it was exciting for me. You know, I came home and my family was moving big drugs, and I started becoming part of it. And you know, my dad gave me a car, and he bought me a canteen route out in Wellesley with the truck and all that. And he bought me a motorcycle, and you know, things looked good on that side. Got a condo, and I was with a girl, and the next thing you know, within that year, or probably a little over a year out, I ended up going to a party in Woburn, and a fight broke out, a bully situation. And I don't like bullies because I was bullied as a kid, and that's one of the things I used my hands and feet. I was bullied. A bully situation started, and I know the kid from Burlington was getting picked on. He was the weaker kid. I asked the guy from Woburn, the kid from Woburn, to leave him alone. Leave him alone, and the kid just told me, F you. You know, he told me, who are you? You know, and he put his hands on me, and I ended up taking him, knocking him out. I smashed his head off my knee, and I stomped him, and all his friends surrounded me. And I threw a couple more kicks, dislocated the kid's shoulder, and I pulled out a beer bottle, and I smashed the kid right in the face with a bottle. I ended up getting 12 to 20 years in Walpole for that.
12 to 20 years for that.
Mayhem and assault to kill.
No.
So
you go up there.
So within a year and a half later, I'm in. You know, I'm on a $500,000 bail. I'm in Cambridge jail. You know, my dad died. He had a heart attack in the Bahamas, and I went to the funeral from Cambridge. And within the next 10 months, that September, March of '83, he died. Then September, I get sentenced to Walpole. I get to 12 to 20 for assault to kill and mayhem. And that February, my brother OD'd and died.
Wow.
So I went to his funeral in shackles and chains from Walpole.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I had to do, not all in Walpole, but I did almost 10 years up there, 9 years, 8 months, you know, 2.5 in Walpole, 4 down in Norfolk, out to Concord Farm, you know, getting high in there too. I get lugged back and back to Walpole, and then back out to Norfolk, to Concord, Shirley Minimum. You know, I did the Rotary, you know, did the.
There's something about getting high upstate.
Yeah.
It's just, that's what you do, right?
Yeah, that's what you do,
That's
you know.
what you do.
So you're getting high up there, and you know, you get it dirtier, and you're going back behind the wall. So I played that game. But when I came out of the sentence, Darryl, after doing almost 10 years, you know, it was 1994. I went away in '83. And it was just me and my mother now, and things were just strange for me. You know, it was just, I just lost a decade of my life. I spent all my 20s up there, you know. From 20 to 31, I was incarcerated, and I did the 2 years in Barica before that.
Yeah.
So it was like I already put in 13 years. I'm only in my 30s. And,
Wow.
I'm a young kid, I'm a 31-year-old guy, and I ended up, you know, I ended up going into AA because that's what parole asked me to do. I didn't do it for me. parole had a stipulation to go to program, do AA, and
Because they knew you had a problem. And did you know?
they told me.
Did you know you had a problem?
Well, they told me for years, you need AA. I was told in Brick as a kid I needed AA at 17, but I wasn't gonna do it other people's way. This was my life, and I wasn't gonna listen to nobody.
But you didn't. I mean, let me ask you. But you didn't, because I didn't know. I just thought I was a criminal. I thought I was crazy. I mean, when I got clean, I not only had drug issues, I had a list of issues, but I also had criminal thinking that we just couldn't stop.
We have
is that how you
we
felt?
have alcoholism, we have drug addiction, and we become criminally minded.
Criminal mind. Criminal
And
thinking.
what happens is we become convicted criminally by being in institutions up there. We become convict mentality. It's about a respect thing now after I did so much time and all that. And I think I was just speaking to you about that. Like, nobody cares that you just did 10 years of your life, guy. You come back out society, nobody cares about you that you did 10 years. They don't
wear it as a badge of honor.
They don't have to respect you that you were in Walpole. They don't have to respect you that you did 10 years. Get a job, pay your bills, go to work, drive a car with a license, and then you'll get respect. If you have kids, be a father or a mother to those kids. Stuff like that. But I didn't get it. I was just a kid, young kid, and I come out of doing the 10 years, and I wanted respect, and talk about fear. That's that fear thing. People are scared of you, and you get off on that fear.
Yeah.
You walk into a bar, and it was like, whoa.
Hope he doesn't drink too much.
Yeah. Well, people would leave, too. They'd see me coming, like, people wouldn't want to get in the car with you, like, no, I ain't getting in the car with him. No, it's going to be a bad scene.
Yeah.
So
now you're out. So now you leave. The court tells you to go to AA.
So parole told me to go to AA.
Parole,
and I started going to AA. I got a sponsor. Started, assimilating myself with sober people. Started going on commitments with them. But I wasn't really in it to stay sober. I just wanted to get the card signed. And then I'd go. I always had like a 12-pack of beer or a bottle in my car, and I had some weed, some marijuana. And as soon as the meeting was over, I couldn't wait to get out and start drinking and smoking the grass and take off in my car and just playing the game with the. Getting the card signed and stuff. But, I didn't last long on that. I started selling drugs again, started doing criminal stuff. In a relationship with a nice girl in college that she found out, like, this isn't the guy that I thought, he's a drug addict, This girl was an RN. She was going to become a master's. She's probably a doctor today. She was like, I got to get away from him. And I started freebasing coke. I wanted to learn how they were doing it, because when I was in all those 80s, the freebase stuff was going on.
It came out, right?
Smoking the coke. So I had how do you do that? Oh, you cook it in a spoon, you get a tube. That's the next thing you know. I was off and running, smoking it, shooting it, selling it. And then right down the road, violence was waiting for me again. I got in more scraps. I ended up getting into more real violent situations with baseball bats this time. I ended up hurting a couple of guys with bats, and I ended up going on the run. I went out on the run out in Vegas. I stayed out there for like a year, and I came back and to see my mom, and they were waiting for me at the Logan Airport. Violent Fugitive Task Force, and corrections, all of them, moving courts, Burlington Police. There was like 20 cops waiting for me. They got me as I was coming through get off the plane and coming through the whatever it was. They grabbed me up, and I ended up going back up for 5 more years. I went upstate for 5 years after that. I came back out in the 90s, and it was just a vicious circle of just a cycle of in and out, 52A, bids in Barica. I ended up doing a few more bids in Barica. I did a 2.5. I did a year. All my problems, everything was all alcohol and drug related. All of it.
It's crazy.
It is. Every problem I ever had. When I picked up as a kid, 9 years old, I really lost all aspirations, any hopes or any dreams as a human. As a young man, I didn't have any hopes. All my hopes was I was look out the window in school and can't wait to get out of school. Like, when the hell is this going to go? I can't wait to go out and drink and smoke weed and take drugs.
Did you accept? Because I know for me, did you accept the fact? Well, I accept the fact that I was going to either die from overdose, die as an addict, or die in prison. Was that how you saw it?
So this came to me 7 years. I just celebrated 7 years clean.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Christmas week. So what happened to me was my mother died September 30th of 2015. And of course, being a good alcoholic and drug addict, I'm living with mommy. That's what we do. I'm living at mama's house.
Take hostages, right?
and she died unexpectedly. Well, she was 86, and she ended up getting septic from medication, and she died. So I was in the house all alone, and I knew I was going to get an inheritance. I'm getting this house with a pretty, a chunk of money that I'm not used to. And I was kind of in shock. My mother was gone because I'm all alone now. Now my whole family's gone. My nephew OD'd in 2006. I found him on the floor dead. My brother's kid died. So I'm all alone. I really don't have much. I have cousins, but I don't have any other family.
And you're probably not close to them because
Yeah,
we spent
really
so much
not.
time in penitentiary.
Yeah, I'm really not close to all my, some of them.
Crazy,
Yeah,
man.
really. So I'm basically all alone. And all I'm doing every day is I'm getting up, I'm going up to the liquor store, and I'm getting a 30-pack of beer, a bottle of Absolute vodka, and some peppermint schnapps. And I'm drinking all day till around 12:01 till a couple of friends that have a car and license will come and get me. And we'll take rides up to Lower Lawrence to go pick up dope. And I was in a lot of pain. I was in a lot of pain, and I was in a lot of rage. My mind was in rage. So what happened was I was like, I got to get sober. I'm not going to be able to I'll lose this house. For the first time in my life, I had two gifts of what, we talk about. You have the gift of desperation. I was desperate this time to really plug into a program to change my life. AA was going to be my program. And I had the fear of doom. I was going to die. So it was back then, my mom just passing, and every day I was waking up, and my first thought was I wanted to go to the package store and get as much booze as I could for the day, which would be, a 30-pack, a bottle of Absolute vodka, a quart, and a bottle of peppermint schnapps. But what happened was I took in two friends of mine, and both of them are addicts, and now we're all in the house. I'm renting rooms for them, cheap money. But the whole deal was just to party and get high. And for me, the fear came in my life in my mind, the fear came that I was going to lose the house. The thought came, Darryl, I said, I'm either going to die, I'm going to end up in jail, I'm going to end up homeless. Personally, I've never been homeless, and I don't think I can't do homeless. I can't do it. I can do jail. I can do jail and prison real well. I can fit right up there.
Homelessness, you ain't lying. So
yeah, I can't do homelessness. That's not for me. I need 3 squares and a hot cot. I need a hot room. I need to brush my teeth, take a shower. I'm a clean guy. So I never experienced that. But for me, I knew I was going to die. I felt it. I felt the fear of doom in my life. And the whole thought was if I went back to the can, the can was not an option for me this time. I said, my mother's gone. She took care of me up there for years. That lady always made sure I had $100 a week in my canteen. She was my rock. She got me to a lot of bids. Now she wasn't there.
Imagine being there without nothing.
Yeah, so I had that vision, what am I going to do? Go around and ask somebody, hey, can you get me a thing of toothpaste this week? Give me a bar of soap, and that's not me. I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm sure I could have figured it out with cousins and get me money out of the inheritance to send me up there, but the prison and the jail was not an option in my mind. It was like I had 3 doors to look at. I had the door of jail, the door of homelessness, or the door of sobriety or death. Those 4 doors, 4 doors. So there's this saying, you either get locked up, you get covered up, or you get sobered up. That's a saying we say now. That's my
Say it again.
Well, my wife is sober, a long time. She's sober, coming up on 39 years.
Congratulations.
She's old school New York AA. She got sober in New York City in 1983. And she says it in meetings all the time. You have 3 choices. You either get locked up, covered up,
or sobered up.
Sobered up.
Yeah, that's dope.
Those are those 3 choices you got.
And that's a fact.
That's a fact.
That's a fact.
For guys like me and yourself, I think that all the time we spent incarcerated saved our lives.
It did.
It saved my life.
And we look good.
Yeah, thank you.
Being
Thank
preserved.
you. Well, for 60 years old, I'm all right today.
Yeah,
I'm all right with myself. But I know my whole life today is on. My whole being is that I'm sober today and that I don't go around hurting anyone. So I knew I was going to die back then. And my only option was to go to AA for me. And I went to a meeting probably, I come up to Christmas week around the 15th or 10 days before Christmas. And I ended up getting off the dope. I had 2 milligrams of Suboxones. And I quit the dope because I was in my mind was just so I was in a homicidal way. Like my thoughts were like, I can't go on like this. I was taking rides up to Lower Lawrence in the car with these 2 other guys, and I remember just looking out the window, and I was like, I just can't do this anymore. I can't do this.
Yeah.
You know, I just felt like so much rage in me, and I was like, I got to do something to get better here. What am I going to do? I believe that my mother and, you know, the grace of God came in my life, and, you know, go to AA and rage out in it. And I went into meetings and I raged out the first week of meetings. I had so much anger, like, you know, my family had a gang war, and my father sold drugs, and, you know, I spent all my life in prison. I had such rage, and people in the meetings like, whoa, this guy's in pain. And I was in pain.
Yeah.
I was in a lot of pain. I ended up going to one meeting in Woburn, in St. Charles, over there in Woburn, and I raged out on a Saturday. And most people were like, oh, get away from him. One guy came up and he says, hey, you want to go to a meeting tonight? I said, actually, I do. And he started taking me to meetings, this guy.
Wow.
He became a temporary sponsor. And a week or so later, I went down to Sunday to have a men's meeting at the fire station in Medford. I went to that meeting and I raged out down there. Most people were like, whoa. But after the meeting, this Vietnam vet guy, Bob, he said, George, you should talk to this guy, John, over here. They call him the heroin whisperer. He said, just like that, this guy, John. So this guy, John, saved my life 7 years ago. So I went and I asked him, I said, John, can you help me? He said, just like this. He said, keep coming. And he wanted to see how willing I was. And I came the next Sunday. And John, I really want, you know, I need your help. I was trying to get him to be my sponsor. He said, keep coming. So he did that for over 5 times, over a month of coming to that Sunday meeting. And he said, you ready? And I said, John, I'm willing to do anything to get better here. I have to stay sober. I'm going to die. I knew I was going to die. He said, come to Davis Square. You got a car? I said, I don't have a car. I don't have a lab. I have a license in 15 years. I'm on foot. He said, good. Take a bus, and when you get to Davis Square, use the payphone out front. Call me. Here's my number.
Wow, you did it right.
Yeah. So I went and took the bus into Alewife, took the red line over to Davis Square, and I called him, and he came pick me up, and he started reading the big book to me.
Wow.
He started reading the big book to me, and the first was the doctor's opinion, and it talked about how, you know, mentally defected and full flight from reality and maladjusted to life.
Wow.
It talked about the whole thing about the doctor's opinion. It talks about the phenomena craving. It talks about the allergy that we suffer from. I believe we suffer from an allergy. Once you become addicted to alcohol and drugs, you become your mind, that's where the disease centers in our minds. And now our mind is like that young kid that was playing sports. All of a sudden now I just want to drink and smoke pot. Yeah. You know, and I wanted to, as a young kid, I wanted to experience other drugs. Like, oh, what's that angel dust like? Oh, what's that acid like? What's that cannabinol like? All these drugs, I would just be a guinea pig. Like, yeah, I'll do it. Sure. Yeah, if it gets you high, I'll take it. Yeah.
Trying to just get lost and numb,
Trying
right?
to get lost, get numb. Yeah, comfortably numb in life. Not dealing with life on life terms. So when you're that young and you pick up alcohol and drugs, you don't have a chance, really. You get lost in this life. And then for guys like us that get incarcerated so young, we're getting hit double. Like I'm in county jail at 17. I'm in state prison at 20. Yeah. And I'm doing 10 years up there. And you get now you're in this black hole of the MCI world. Yeah. Because once you get locked into that, it's hard to get out of that.
It's hard to get out of that.
Because now now every time you get in trouble, which is all alcohol and drug, that's why you get in trouble. You're back doing a bid. You're back in the courts. You're back in front of a judge. You know, you're back in shackles and chains. That's the life.
I remember being in court and like when I kind of like knew, and I said, man, you know, you guys got to start dealing with the primary issue. You're dealing with the secondary issue, crime. But if I wasn't getting high, I don't do crime. Right. Isn't that crazy?
Well, there's no real recovery in there.
Yeah, no, it's nothing.
You know, it's vanilla. They sugarcoat it. Yeah, like, they don't really put any emphasis on like helping people change. I think today they're helping people more.
I want to get to that question too, because I do have that question about it. But let's finish. All right, so you get clean.
Yep. So what happened was this guy started reading the big book with me. And started doing step work with me. He started coming to my house. He'd come to my house after he realized.
He's a real sponsor, though, right?
He wanted he wanted me to show how willing I was. You know, and those sayings is we have to be willing, open our mind, and be honest with ourselves. You know, that's where it starts. You have to be willing to take the first step to have to change. This time coming into AA, not like when I was that 30-year-old guy that came out of prison, I was willing to do whatever I had to do to get sober. So, he started coming to my house, and I'd go to his house too, and he became my sponsor. And we just started doing step work together. And he started telling me things about himself that you would never want to tell anybody. And then I started telling him things that I would never tell, that I thought I would take to the grave with me.
Yeah.
And what he said to me is like, you know, do you believe in God? Do you believe in a higher power? I said, John, I've been praying my whole life. I don't get the help. He said, well, what do you do? I said, well, I cheat, steal, fight. You know, I lost. I do all these things that, he said, George, you're blocking the sunlight of the Spirit from entering your soul.
Wow.
You know, God is there. He's within us all. You just have to let him in. You have to open the door to him. You're blocking him. And I started releasing things with him, talking to him about stuff that I would never talk about with anybody. It was secrets. Those skeletons in our closet.
They say
you're only sick as your secrets.
Yeah,
And that is a true fact of our lives.
It is a fact.
Holding all that stuff in is what we do. Is when we learn to get sober, and we learn how to release all that stuff. Because when you get into doing step work, you're releasing all this stuff. You're like carrying 100 million pounds on your back. Yep. All this stuff of your past life, all this insanity of chaos and insane way of living. And you hold it in. You're the only one that's holding it in. You start to learn to let it go and talk about it to people. Like, you know, I did a 4-step. I did all my writings. I started writing out all my steps. I did a first step. One of the biggest things he did to me, he said, George, go back to when it started. When did it start for you? I said, 9-year-old kid, John. He said, go back to that 9-year-old kid, and I want you to write out. Do you remember it all? I go, yeah, I remember. I was playing sports, and I picked up booze and started smoking pot, and the next thing, it just rolled into other drugs. And by the time I was a teenager, 12, 13, 14, 15, I was fully immersed in drug addiction and alcoholism. He said, play it out and go back and play the tape right to the beginning and write it out. So I wrote it out on paper. Wow. I wrote it out. I was that kid, that 9-year-old kid that was going to school, playing sports, and I was enjoying life as a kid. And the minute I picked up alcohol and drugs, that's where my life shifted. Wow. It shifted to that little criminal mind, stealing money to get high, to get booze, and that just rolled into breaking into houses and robberies and selling drugs and all that criminal activity we get into.
Yeah.
So that's one of the first things he did, and I started writing out my steps. You know, I'm powerless over alcohol and drugs, and I write out what would happen to me if I pick up a drink or drug. And I wrote out, a second step and a third step.
Did you go through all of them?
Yeah. That's that piece you see in me when you just walked into the room. You're like, you know, I just spoke to you about how, you know, we know Frankie, and he's done a ton of time.
Yeah.
He came out of the Max 2 years ago. He got in my truck. He goes, what happened to you? I said, what do you mean what happened to me? He goes, I ain't never seen you calm. You go to 1 to 100 in a minute. I go, Frank, I was writing you. This was 2 years ago. I say, I'm 5 years sober. I've changed my life. I'm not that very ready to jump at you kind of guy anymore. I've changed my life.
Mad subtle, mad relaxed, man.
I'm at peace. I'm blessed today. I'm too blessed to be stressed. You know, for a guy like me, I should have been dead 30 years ago. And every day I get to wake up and have another day of life. I'm grateful for, you know, my past it's over. I don't live in my past, and I don't boo-hoo about it. It's done. It's what it is. We did it to ourselves as much as being misinformed by the misinformed people. But we were willing to join in with that. Yeah. Well, we didn't know any better.
You have to take responsibility.
But yeah, you have to be responsible. You have to be accountable. You have to be reliable. And in some way, you have to stop playing victim here. Because what happens to a good addict like myself is I played victim for years. I would talk about if you had a family like mine, you know, the gang war stuff, or if you lost your father and brother within 10 months of your life locked up, you're drinking drug too. So we play victim. We victimization of all our own stuff that happened to us. And the only victim you are is a victim to your own circumstances. You play victim to it, you know. And somehow, some way of life, you got to grow up, and you got to start becoming accountable. Yeah, it's about action. You have to. If you don't put the action into the program, you won't get better. And one of the things that this guy said, he goes, I'm not a guy that's going to tell you if you drank for 25 years or 30 years or 40 years, it's going to take you 30 years to get better. If you do the work today, you'll start getting better now, today. Wow. And I believed him, and I started doing the work with him. One of the things he did with me after my first year of sobriety, he put me in a Cursillo at St. Basil's in Methuen. A what? A Cursillo. A Cursillo, it's called a Cursillo. It's a spiritual retreat, a 4-day. It's a 4-day men's spiritual retreat. Okay. And you know, so what he was trying to do was to help me like let other men into my life, you know, because guys like us, we always push people away.
Yeah, most definitely. Only a certain.
You know, I remember my circle was 1, 2, you know, and on the street it was me and my girl. It would be like that, you know. I didn't really get with the guy thing. Yeah. If I saw it, I was coming and going with you. Yeah. You know. So I did a 4-day spiritual retreat, and I did a 5th step within that weekend with a priest. And one of the things the priest said, and I told the priest everything. I told him criminal stuff that I would have taken to the grave. He said, George, you need to forgive yourself. God forgives you.
Wow.
God forgives you. You're an alcoholic and a drug addict, and the things you do under that substance abuse lifestyle, God forgives you for all that. So that helped me a lot too, because that's one of the things people can't really get out of. They can't forgive themselves for all the stuff that hurt their families, hurt their kids. You
It's
have
a
to
lot.
you have to move on from that. And one of the things is if you don't change your past, then your future will continue to be your past. You'll keep living in yesterdays.
Yeah.
So like I've moved on from all that. I've grown all that. For me, I'm relatively brand new in the program. Just 7 years. I'm still new. Every day I wake up, I'm new. I go to a bunch of meetings. I go to a bunch of men's meetings. But my whole life has changed so much, Darryl. Is all the people in my life are sober.
There's a saying, what you just said, every day is new after 7 years. There's a saying that we have that when people don't do it day to day, is too many people have too many years and not enough days.
That's right.
Right, they forget to keep, it's only a day.
That's right.
You know what I mean? That yesterday's recovery don't keep us clean today.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
That's a good thing.
You have to live in the day.
You have to live in the day. Hey, so now you're happy, you got a wife, how does she inspire you? How does she motivate you? I mean, because that's the person we connect with is very important, right? It could be detrimental, or they can lift us or destroy us. And obviously, she's benefiting you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How does it feel?
She's a person in long-term recovery.
Yeah.
I mean, we just have a lot of love and a lot of respect, and we have a lot of fun and admiration for each other. She's
Your best friend?
Yeah, she's helped me a ton. She's helped me a ton in my life. She came into my life after my first year of sobriety. Okay. We were dating, and then I moved her into the home, and we've changed that whole home out. We made it a nice home. We remodeled the whole home.
So you still have the house and everything?
Oh, yeah.
You didn't lose it?
We remodeled the house. We built an apartment in the basement.
Good,
good. I have a couple tenants down there. My whole life has changed. Within 2 years, I got my license back finally from the registry. I paid all my bills. Went and did the driving school for like the 5th time I had to do it. The safety class, I had to do that. It was like the 5th time I had to do it. I got a little truck. Got a motorcycle. Got my motorcycle license. I ended up, I'm a construction guy working, demolition. I still paint on the side. I work plumbing. So I was plumbing just 2.5 years ago, and I ended up doing the recovery coach in Malden Overcoming Addiction. I did that with them, and I wanted to go work in the field. So I ended up leaving a job where I made good money plumbing. I was making at least $1,000, $1,200 a week cash, and I ended up going into Banyan treatment centers for $15.70 an hour, just because I wanted to go in the field.
Give back.
I wanted to go in the field and work, and I stayed there a year, and then I moved on to Mayflower. A year ago, this past November, I trained with them. That wasn't a real good fit with me, and I stayed there till March, and then I moved on. And then Greg and another guy, the rapper Slane.
Slane, yeah.
I work with Slane at Banyan, and he called me and he wanted me to jump with Charles River. I got involved in Charles River, and it's a great place. I became a recovery counselor there. But for me, I started night school, and my goal is to get through school. I'm at college in Middlesex Community College.
Okay. So you can continue working.
Yeah, I'm going to get back in the field. I just left Charles River 2 weeks ago. I'm focusing on my school, and I'm still painting on the side. I just want to get that license. I want it to mean something. Yeah. Because they hire recovery counselors, and for me, it has to mean something. Like, I have good sobriety, though. Yeah. I know. I can read the big book in and out. I've done step work. I can help people.
You can see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can guide people in that facet of recovery. My recovery is real. I don't sugarcoat this. If you're out there in active addiction, then your chances are highly you're going to die. Yeah, you're going to die.
That's a fact.
The thing about school and all that, for me, it's learning. It's CBT, it's DBT, it's motivational interviewing. So I'm learning all these new things. But I bring real recovery with the experience of our lives. I've lived it. I lived there for over 4 decades. I was incarcerated over two decades of my life, incarcerated from it. I lost my brother from it. I lost my nephew from it. My family suffered from my mother's brothers, a gang war with booze and woman. Started the Irish gang wars in the 60s. So it's been in my family. It probably, even for yourself, if you looked at the lineage of your family, somewhere in the line, like it goes back to Ireland for my family.
Probably way
There's
down
no
south
doubt
or whatever.
about it.
Yeah,
There's
yes,
no doubt
100%.
about it. So that's one of the things I've learned too by being in school is we get affected by our bloodlines, the lineage, and then we get affected by peer pressure of where we run and how we end up with people, friends, and how we assimilate with people.
Yeah.
I ran with a crowd that was rough, and they were drinking and drugging very young, like my brother's friends and all of them. They weren't like looking to go to school, and they weren't going to go to college.
They just wanted to chill and get high.
Yeah, they were all getting high, and I fell into that realm. So,
Let me ask you a question, George. What you just said is you're right. I also believe that people always say, well, it's really not about your environment. Environment does play a lot. I always have this saying that if you take an eagle egg and a chicken egg, right, and you put them in a chicken coop and you come back when they're hatched, you're going to see an eagle acting like a chicken.
That's right.
Because it's an environment. It's the same way because the environment
Exactly.
teaches you that. So I agree with that. So now you're happy. You're married. You have goals. You have vision of coming back and helping people. And I think with the paper, with your degree, that you'll be on another level where you can be making decisions. I think a lot more of us need to go, not just on the front lines and helping out, but need to go up there where decisions are made because maybe we have good ideas that people don't want to receive because we're on the bottom and we can't make those decisions. Okay, so is there anything else that you want to say? Because I wanted to give you a chance to speak to them, but I wanted to make sure. We didn't even use this. I don't even know why.
I would just say that if you're out there in active, addiction or alcoholism and you're trying to find a way out, is to go into the program, AA or NA, and ask for help. Raise your hand. Tell somebody where you're at. Let people know. It's critical to really fight for your life. You have to show up. You got to be willing to do some work, though. You got to get out of your own way and really, let this happen for you. Because, guys, I don't want to say, oh, if we could do it or I could do it, you could do it. It's not about that. It's about if you really want to change your life, it's doable. For anyone that's had enough of pain, enough misery, nothing's going to change if nothing changes. So if you continue doing what you're doing, don't expect anything to get better. Don't expect anything to get different. Expect jails, death, and institutions. That's what the disease is prevalent on, and that's what's happening.
Let me ask you a question. People always think that going to jail is cool and a badge on it. Can you speak to that? That is really not.
There's nothing cool about jail. There's nothing cool about prison. It's really a phallus way of life. It's bogus up there, and it's another people are suffering up there. All they're doing is lining up in the med cart, getting medicated up there to numb themselves through the beds now.
Yeah.
It's changed so much from 40 years ago when we were doing time in the 80s and 90s. It's just a whole different ball up there now. Personally, I go to the jails and speak. I go to Barica. I go to Nashua Street. I'm on my way in to go to MCI. I'm working with a guy up there. LT is going to be getting me in there. And I speak all the time because it really can start inside the institution and start changing.
Yeah.
You can really start. We didn't look at it like that when we were doing time, but you can go to school in there and you can do things in there and take the right kind of avenues in there to try to get out of it. So when you come out, you're in a better position to stay out. Because the recidivism rate is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So I love going into, Barica. We were just.
How did that feel? That picture's crazy.
Yeah, it's amazing. I've been up there.
You see what I put on the picture, right?
I've been up there probably 40 times in the last few years. And so when I go up there, I see a lot of guys I did time with.
Still doing it,
They're in the red seats. They got their bobos. They got the uniforms on. Like, George, what? They say to me, like, guys, I got sober. I can't do this anymore. I just can't do this. I had enough of this. This is I can't.
You get to leave, man. Remember how we go?
So I get to sit down in the staff kitchen and have lunch with them and talk to them. You remember Martha?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she loves me.
She runs the program.
Yeah. She's been calling to get me back up there. So
that's a good thing, man.
Yeah. So one of the things I always say to myself, I look around and I say to myself, how did I do this? You know, I look at all these guys doing this still to this day. I say, how did I spent all the 80s, 90s, 2000s. I mean, I was 51 years old. I was doing a 6-month bid for driving without a license in Billerica. I stayed in B-Pod. I wrapped it up in B-Pod. How did I do this? I said, you know how you did it? You were insane. You were alcohol and drug addicted insane.
Yeah.
I was an insane guy. And I accepted that life like it was second nature to me.
That's
I don't
crazy
accept it
thing,
today,
man.
Darryl. I don't accept it.
No,
When
we
I
don't
go up
have
there
to.
and speak to those guys, I'm real with them. A lot of them aren't listening. We weren't listening either. People used to come up there when we speak, and I wasn't
It
listening.
was one of the good times.
I wanted the good time.
Yeah,
I wanted the 2.5 days a month.
We thought we were getting good time.
That's really that. Yeah, just to get out to come back.
Come back quicker.
To come back quickly, you know. So, yeah,
That's
I mean,
insane. That's
yeah,
true.
it's just, you know, it's really, if you're out there in the struggle of alcohol and drug addiction and you want to do something, you know, make that phone call, get off the streets, go to detox, and fight this disease. The disease centers in our mind. It's always wanting us to throw the towel in, always wanting us to quit. When you gotta just hang in there. The miracle can happen for anyone. If you really want to change your life, fight for it. You gotta fight. You know, you gotta fight.
Thank you, George. Just like to thank everybody for coming. Like to thank George for coming. You're invited back whenever. You know, you guys get together. You,
Maybe me
Greg,
and Greg will come up.
come up and do it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? You
we'd
guys
love
come back. We'll
love
sit down, get another direction, and bring it. You're welcome anytime. It's open.
Yeah.
Give me a call. You have it. You know.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you coming.
Yeah.
I thank you guys for watching the show. And like he said, there's nothing really cool about that life that we lived. You know, think about it, 2 decades, a lot of anger, a lot of losses, and a lot of pain. And you don't have to get to that point. That's why I have these shows. Like I said before, yes, there's people dying to this disease, but I like to show people that are living with the substance abuse disorder, and then that you can live with it, and that there is hope. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And as always, I like to say I love you to Kaisha, Darryl, and Zayla. Peace.